Hello and welcome back, or welcome. I am Book Lover Lorna and we've made it through January. Can you believe it? It was like the longest month ever, which kind of shows for how many books I read, which we'll go into in a minute. So you can see them a little bit here, sneak preview. January was long. There was 5 weekends in January. I feel like that's what made it long. I feel like February is going to fly by. But well done. I feel like most of the things that I've seen online is that people did really well in January reading wise and kind of devoured loads of books. So if that's you as well, well done. Kick-started off the year in a great fashion. If you didn't, no worries. You've got 11 months to read left in the year. So what better opportunity really. But I did really well in January. Now, I've mentioned before, I have halved my reading goal for the year. So my reading goal for 2022 is 50 books, which means that I only need to read 4 books a month on average to reach my 50 for the year. Now, January has been a quiet month for me. I haven't had a lot going on and I have had a lot of reading time. So I finished the month on 10 books. 10 books when I'm only supposed to read 4. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it did, and we're happy with that. I will not be continuing in the same fashion for the rest of the year, but it's not a bad place to be for the end of the first month. So we'll accept that. So I'm already a good chunk into my reading goal, which is, you know, I guess. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 10 books that I read. Now the first one that I read, and I started off the year with this one because last year, 2021, I read this author's debut novel and I really enjoyed it as a way to kick off the year, so I did that again this year. I read Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousins. Now this one I gave 5 stars to. I really loved it and it was a good way to start the year. I think that's maybe Sophie Cousins' New Year's tradition to be the first book that I read every year. We'll see if she brings out any more books. This one was very predictable, but it was a romance, and I think that sometimes that's a good thing in a romance. You kind of want to be like, oh, come on, you know, I know what's going to happen, just do it. And like as you're reading along, you're kind of like, oh, I want you two to get together. Why are you not doing it? And you're like, oh, they're going to tell each other they like each other, and then they don't. And I think that's kind of the part of the romance book. So the predictability didn't kind of like dampen it or anything at all. It was a little bit kind of outside the box of a normal romance. You know, when you read a romance book, sometimes you're like, oh, I've read this plot before. This was a little bit more unusual. It involves lost luggage at an airport and kind of believing that whatever is in someone's suitcase shows if they could be your soulmate or not, if you are kind of on a parallel with your thoughts, opinions, likes, dislikes, things like that. So this was really interesting, 5 stars. I will definitely recommend this. It's very easy reading, very easy reading, but like I say, a little bit out of the box. So for the next book I read in January, I think I've mentioned before, I'm doing like the 12 challenge, which was everyone on Instagram at the beginning of January, end of December, which is 12 books recommended by 12 friends. Now, the first one that I started the year with was recommended to me by Amy's Reading Nook, and it was Britt Marie Was Here by Frederick Backman. Now, when I started it, this is the first book I've read from him. When I started it, I was a little bit like, not sure if I'm going to get along with Britt Marie here. I don't think we're going to understand each other. But the more I got into it, I kind of settled into it, probably about 50 pages or so. I was like, I'm getting it now, I'm getting this. I thought the characters were really well, there was a lot of characters, but they each had the perfect amount of detail given to their lives, and the character development of every single character was absolutely spot on for the whole story. I did find that there were a few bits where it was a little bit like boring and it felt a little bit drawn out, but then there were bits where I was like, oh yes. So it was very much like this. That's a roller coaster, by the way, or like an up and down wave. Do you know what? When I was in school, we did an assembly. I don't know what the assembly was about. Noah's Ark, I think. Maybe? I don't know. But I remember at the beginning of the assembly, when everyone was coming into the assembly hall, I was sat on the front of the stage with everyone else in my class, going like this. Was it just one way? Under the sea, under the sea. Da, 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 da. I think I just remember doing that, like I was the sea. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that book was interesting. I think I'll pick up another Frederick Beckman book. I don't know which one yet. I'm not sure. I've been seen like people say good things about A Man Called Ove, so maybe that one. Not sure yet. Kind of by the cover, I'm scared it's going to be like the same, and I don't want it to be the same. I want it to be different than Britt Marie was here. But yeah, interesting. Bit of a roller coaster in terms of like the enjoyment. So I've given it 4 stars for that reason. But I think the plot, like the basis for the story, was really, really good. Like, very strong. And like I say, character development was good. So I don't really have that many complaints. Just like there were some parts where I was like, oh, eh. But then, you know, it picked up again. So 4 stars. Probably would recommend reading it. I did try and watch, there's on iPlayer, there's like a movie adaptation of it. I clicked on it, I started watching it, I watched 5 minutes, and it was in Swedish. The book is originally Swedish and the UK version is translated from Swedish. I think it's Swedish. And the movie was in Swedish with subtitles. And I'll be honest, I don't fully pay attention when I'm watching movies. Like, I just don't have the attention span. My attention span is not there. So I use all my attention span up for books. So I turned it off after 5 minutes because I was just not reading what was on the screen for the subtitles. So I didn't know. I wasn't going to keep track of what was going on. So that, you know, that quickly ended. Next in January, I read The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. Now, my favourite Lisa Jewell book is The Family Upstairs. The sequel to that is coming out this year, so I need to reread it. And The Family Upstairs I read in first lockdown. Lol, how many have we had? In first lockdown, and I devoured it in a day. I started reading it at like 10 AM and I finished at like 4 or 5, something like that. I absolutely loved it. So it'll be interesting to see when I reread it actually if I still have the same thoughts or whether like lockdown just put me in this happy book loving bubble. Who knows? Now, some of her other books, so that one I gave 5 stars. Some of her other books I've been a bit like, oh, it's okay. And I've ended up giving them 3 stars. Now, this one has only just come out in paperback in December. I got this one for Christmas. Now, or birthday. One or the other. My Christmas and birthday are too close together. I could never kind of put a line down the middle. This one I thought was big. It just seemed like a big mammoth of a book. It is 470 odd pages. So I thought, oh, this is going to be too much. It's going to be like dragging. There's going to be too much description in the story. But that was not the case. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It took me 2 days to read it. And I think the only reason it took me 2 days is because, you know, adulting. So what can you do? I think I actually would have finished this in 1 day if I had the spare time to, but I don't. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would probably put it in similar kind of realms to The Family Upstairs. I don't know if it's as good as The Family Upstairs in my experience / opinion, because I feel like I can remember more of The Family Upstairs than I can remember of this, even though I've only just read this. So it's a 5, but maybe not as strong as The Family Upstairs. I'm not sure. It's very good. It's balanced perfectly on giving you a chill that you're like, oh my god, and then it moved on to the next development really, really quickly. So for me that's good because I'm not massive on scary stuff. Like, I don't like to be scared because I'll have nightmares and stuff. So that for me worked very well. Like, I know someone else who read this month, and she, well, I think her job is like crime scene investigator type thing, and she didn't really enjoy it because she could see loads of like holes in the story from like the police aspect type thing, whereas obviously I'm not in that world, so I couldn't see the flaws. So she didn't enjoy it as much because she knew that some of the things weren't that accurate in terms of how things happen with the police force and stuff. So it's very much my own opinion. Well, that's what all my videos are, let's be honest. But yeah, enjoyed that one. So I listened to 2 audiobooks in January. One was Billy and Me by Giovanna Fletcher, and the second one was Always With Love, also by Giovanna Fletcher. I don't have Billy and Me for some reason, but I listened to them by audiobook. Anyway, I listen to audiobooks that I have already read the books for, because I don't fully, like, I'm dyslexic and I can't just fully listen to something because I'm not going to take it in. So because I'm half like zoning in and out, if I miss 5 minutes, I kind of know what's happened from what they're saying now because I've read the book and I know the story. That's my thought process for picking up those as audiobooks, playing those as audiobooks. Now, last time I read Billy and Me as a physical book, I gave it 4 stars. When I listened to it, I dropped that to 3 stars because, well, firstly, this is not relating to the actual book, this is relating to the audiobook. The narrator was so annoying. Like, she literally had one of the most annoying voices and it was just grinding me up the wrong way. I was like, you're making me dislike this book, please don't do this. So I kind of had to overlook that. Now what I did realise that, and this is the reason that I've dropped it to 3 stars, maybe it's not aged well. There are a few, I mean, it's not even that old a book. There are a few kind of phrases and things that are said in the book which you're like, oh, do we want to talk about women like that kind of thing? Not in like a derogatory way, but like the main character is very, well, yeah, like she's negative about herself and I hate that. I don't like that in books, like, at all. And I feel like newer books, that's not such a thing. Whereas like 2000s books, early 2010s books, they have that in them and I don't love it. I'm not there for it. We don't need to be negative about our bodies and things like that, you know. So that kind of took me down to 3 stars, and I also realised how annoying the main character is. Like, she's just so cringy, like a bit cringy. So yeah, I took that down to 3 stars. And then Always With Love, I don't know what my original rating was. I think it was 4 stars. When I listened to the audiobook in January, I've given it 4 stars again. It had a different narrator, which massively helped. The main character, Sophie, wasn't quite as annoying as she was in Billy and Me. She's matured a bit, you know, she's got herself in an adult relationship. But it had some of those, I'm not explaining what these books are about, am I? I don't even know why I do this booktube thing. I'm not even doing the job. So her and her boyfriend in the second book are settled in their relationship, but there's so many things that are, the main character Sophie, she's like, oh well, he said this, so that must mean this and that must mean this. I'm not there for that, hun. No, like, we don't second guess people, we don't assume things, we're not, you know, thinking, oh, he looked at me funny, he must hate me, he doesn't love me anymore. No, like, that is such a fragile female existence. That is not what we're about. Like, females are strong, they are powerful. If you want to know something, you just ask someone, just communicate. I hate it when, like, people, characters, things don't communicate. So that was a little bit of that in the second book, which is probably why it wasn't a 5-star. The narration was definitely a lot better. I think it was Cara Tompkins. Her name is something like that. I know her, I can picture her face, because I literally, from hearing her voice, I knew what she looked like. I remember her from something or other. But narration was definitely a lot better, a lot more improved. I think it flows a little bit better maybe than Billy and Me, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I gave that one 4 stars. So 2 audiobooks in January. Success. I don't usually listen to that many audiobooks. Next in January was Summer at Rose Island by Holly Martin. Now this was, you can't see that, this was the first book that I ever read from Holly Martin and the one that got me into her stories. This was a reread because it's part of the White Cliff Bay series, and when I read it at first I didn't know that. So this is actually the 3rd book in that series. So in December I read book 1, book 2, and then obviously January I finished off by rereading this one. I enjoyed it just as much as the first time, I think. Obviously I knew what was going to happen, so it's not quite the same experience, but I really enjoyed it and gave it 5 stars again. It's pretty much like an angsty, moody American and this woman who is like really nice, and their love story of trying to battle through his moodiness and, you know, breaking down that barrier and falling in love. So yeah, nice romance. Next, I read Anything Could Happen by Lucy Diamond. Now, this is a new release. I read it from through NetGalley, so as a review copy, as an ebook. I buddy read it with Lisa from Tots and Tales on Instagram. Now, this wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, and I think I'm kind of realising that maybe Lucy Diamond isn't so much for me anymore. I've looked at the last reviews that I've given, like the last few books, and they've all been 3-star, this one included. So I think the idea for the story, which was basically a young girl and her mum, and she doesn't know who her dad is. The mum hasn't told her. She kind of finds out for herself, the young girl does, gets them back together, like, you know, well, not back together, but she gets everyone in touch with each other again, and it's like basically, I keep saying basically a lot today, it's what happens from there. The idea, fantastic. I was going to say fabulous and then changed it fantastic. The basis of the story, fantastic. The execution, it fell flat. It wasn't the best. I think it was relatable in terms of if you come from like a broken home, so like a separated mother and father, I think that was good, and that was like a relatable part of it, because let's be honest, there's more separated parents than together parents now, lol. But I think that was really good. The characters were okay, but there wasn't a lovable character, and I think for me, I need at least like one character that I either sympathise with or like I want to be friends with in a story, and I didn't have that. So there wasn't kind of an enjoyment to it, and I kept forgetting what had happened. Like when we were buddy reading it, I was like, I can't remember what just happened. I can barely remember the characters' names because there was no one that I was really interested in. So 3 stars, not the best. Might need to like review if I'm still going to read Lucy Diamond books or not. I think I might have outgrown them a bit. They're adult reads, but I think I might have outgrown them a bit. Okay, next in January, I read a book that's been on my shelf for like a year, and I've seen loads of other people read it, but I haven't read reviews for it before. That is Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. Now, this is essentially... This is difficult. This is a challenge here. The book is essentially this woman, Florence, she's like in her very early 20s, I think 20 or 22 at the time of writing this book. And she's trying to portray the fact that there are differences between life for men and women. And say, for example, the fact that it costs more to be a woman from expectations. So, for example, razors are more expensive, hair care, more expensive. I mean, haircuts and stuff is, I think, more expensive as well. We require more things, you know, bras, men don't wear bras, we have to pay for those, they're expensive, things like that. That's kind of the idea of the book, and it's a little bit about like homophobia and stuff like that, and it was interesting. So as I read through it, I was like, oh, that's a very valid point. Every so often, this was just my thought. But mostly these were things that I already had at the forefront of my mind. And I think I read another review actually that said, once I'd finished this, that said that this would have been a really valuable book for their teenage self, but as an adult, it was really repetitive and things that were very, very obvious. But I guess that not everyone thinks in the same way. And if you've already got those kind of thoughts, you're probably going to pick up a book like this. If you haven't already got those thoughts, then you're not going to pick up a book like this. So it's kind of, it needs to be those people who wouldn't pick up a book like this that would pick it up, if that makes sense. I don't know. So one thing that I will say from the reviews that I read, apparently I haven't read the other book, but this is a direct rip-off of another book. I will actually find out what the other book is called, because that is very valuable for you to know. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this name. Chidera Igure's What a Time to Be Alone. Apparently this is like basically a direct copy of that book, which is ironic because Florence Given is very much talking in this book about being authentic, not being degrading to other races and stuff, and that is exactly what she's done by kind of copying this book from another book. This did also feel massively preachy, like it wasn't educational. It was a little bit thought-provoking, but it was mostly like, you need to do this, you shouldn't be do that, don't let someone say this to you. No, there's a lot of factors like to life. There's not a one-size-fits-all. The world is not black and white. That's not the way things work. There are many factors which contribute to certain situations, certain conversations, and I feel like Florence is maybe her age. I mean, I'm only 25. I have a lot to learn over my time, you know, on this planet, but I feel like when I was 20 or 22, my thought processes were massively different to the way they are now, particularly in your, you know, 20s, 30s. Your ideas, thought processes develop a lot, and they shape from your experiences that you have, the conversations you have, the books that you read. And I feel like Florence is not ready to have a book like this out. I think definitely valuable to have books like this out and about, but I feel like she's not experienced enough yet. She has experienced a lot of things, but to kind of have the ability to compare them to normal everyday life, not so much. Definitely had the experiences, but yeah, the comparison to the way that the world turns, whatever, I don't know if there's enough of that to kind of back up this book and to put it on its own two legs. And maybe that's why it's very preachy and not kind of considering of other factors, maybe. Basically, this needs to be more teaching and less dictating and not copying other books. So for that reason, 2 stars. When I first finished it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, decent. And I would have given it a high star rating. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, actually, what were my thoughts when I was reading the book? And I read some other reviews and that put me down to 2 stars. So I wouldn't really recommend picking this up unless you don't, well, actually, no, don't pick it up because it's a copy of someone else's book. Yeah, actually, just don't pick it up. Like, don't pick this up. Don't pick it up. Okay, let's be a bit happier. Next in January, I reread House Rules by Jodi Picoult. Now this is a huge book and I thought picking up, this is going to be a mammoth. I'm not going to like it. Last time I read it, I gave it 3 stars. And this time I took my rating up to 5 stars, which is absolutely fabulous. And I think that the reason maybe I gave it 3 stars is because I was too young for it. I think that the age that I probably read it, which was probably around the time I was 17, I didn't really love big books, and like I felt, because I didn't read so quickly, I would get kind of stuck in them. So as I read a lot quicker now, I think I could kind of appreciate what was in the book more, and it didn't feel, I expected there to be kind of over describing detail, and that's why it was 600 pages. That wasn't the case. It actually had the perfect amount of detail. The storyline flew really well, flowed really well. And I just really enjoyed it. I definitely like moved into kind of one of my top favourite Jodi Picoult reads. So I'm very happy I reread this one and I gave it 5 stars. So yay! We've got quite a few like good high rated books this month, which is fabulous. The last book that I read, I think this is the last book. Was this the last book? Let me just check. Yes. Last book I read in January. This was a buddy read, again with Lisa. Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. Can you see? Let me adjust. There you go. Now, this one was so good. This is the third Agatha Christie book that I've read. And this is my favourite so far. We read it because the film is coming out in February and I just definitely wanted to read it before I watched that. So it was very good at keeping you interested. I'll be honest, I did guess the outcome in the first 50 pages. And I said to Lisa, so we did it in sections, and like 50 pages in, I was like, I think this is it. And she was like, no, like surely not, that's so obvious. And then that's what happened. So I was like, wow, like the obvious wins. So I was quite impressed when it came to the end and I was like, Can you believe I just guessed that? But it was really enjoyable. The end of every section, I was just wanting to know what's going on next. There were no kind of lulls in the story. Like when we started the next section, I thought, oh, surely this is just going to be like a setting the scene section. There was so much action every time I picked up this book, and so many deaths. Like so many people died. So many people. Like it was like, it's not death on the Nile, it's massacre on the Nile. Everybody's like dropping dead left, right, and centre. So it was so dramatic, so dramatic, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see the film. I'm going to take my boyfriend with me, and I was like, I was trying to tell him that I'd guessed what was happening in this book, and I was like, oh, it was like really obvious, and we thought it wouldn't be like what I said because it's so obvious, and he was like, and I was like, are you proud? And he was like, well, no, not if it's obvious. I was like, well, I still guessed it. You're not supposed to be able to guess it that easily. And he was like, well, who did it then? And I was like, well, I don't want to tell you because I want you to kind of guess it in the film, but I've ruined it now because I've told him it's so obvious that I think he'll probably guess at the beginning as well. So I've not done myself any favours there, but we'll go and see that, and hopefully that will be good. Thoroughly recommend this one. Like I say, definitely my favourite Agatha Christie read so far for the 3 that I've read. I think it's 3 or 4. But I do find them like a little bit more like brain consuming, and this wasn't really. Like I had to pay attention, but it was, I just wanted to keep going. I didn't want to put it down, which is not what's happened so far for my other Agatha Christie reads because they just require so much of my brain power. But yeah, those are the 10 books that I read in January. Well done me. We've had a fabulous month. That was weird clapping like a seal. Anyway, yeah, those are the 10 books I read. If you've read them, let me know. See if your thoughts are the same or not the same. The same or different, those are the words. Wow, my brain's just like fantastic. That should probably be the end of this video. I think I've talked for long enough now. If you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. I hope you're all reading fabulous books at the moment. I will see you all soon. Bye!